Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. If I could impose on all of you to please consider liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already, and by all means feel free to leave comments on anything we talk about or anything you deem as relative to the channel. So I was recently watching a video from John Griffin's channel, Life 2.0, and in it he describes a call. I guess John takes 15-minute free consultation calls for his coaching business, perhaps, with gentlemen who are in need of his services. And he said he took one of these calls, what is supposed to be a 15-minute call that lasted over an hour, from a gentleman who was getting divorced after 25 years of marriage, I believe he said. And I'll post the link to the video below in the description. But the gentleman had been married 25 years. The woman, of course, for those of you who have been married or in long-term relationships, you realize that when people say they decided something, it means usually she decided and he decided he was going to keep peace and went along. Well, that was the case in this gentleman's life. She decided she was going to stay home to raise the kids, and he went along. And now that he's getting divorced after 25, 30 years of marriage, it turns out that his attorney told him it would have been better if they worked in a similar career or in the same career, had a similar career path. And she gave up her career to be a stay-at-home mom willingly. But now, he's having to fund her lifestyle, turn over the marital home to her. Of course, he's paying for all the kids, their college, their grad school, all of that stuff. And his attorney, according to what John was saying, this gentleman's attorney told him it would have been better if he'd insisted that she just went to work and they put the kids in daycare. Because now the state is viewing their marital contract as, well, she sacrificed a big part of her life and potential earning potential, or earnings, lifetime earnings, to be a stay-at-home mom. So now he is in a situation where he is having to compensate her, even though the whole idea was hers, likely, and I can't say definitively, but I can just about assure you it was her idea to begin with. She did it willingly, and now, of course, she initiated the divorce. So all of this being her idea, but the man gets stuck holding the bag. So, and again, I'll put a link in the description, but for those of you who are new to the channel, I don't give advice, financial or otherwise. I'm just a guy who talks about his life and his life experiences on this channel to the best of my ability. And if other people derive some benefit out of it, that to me is the whole reason for doing the channel. Or simply, if you just like hearing about my misery, I guess for entertainment purposes only, you can consider this channel for entertainment purposes. But the fact of the matter is, this guy is facing basically, if not financial ruin, a significant downgrade in his lifestyle because he's having to shell out all of his cash, investments, and assets to prop up his wife's lifestyle, because of course the court deems that she should be maintaining she shouldn't have to downgrade her lifestyle because of the divorce, but of course he is having to, because he's a man. So I guess this is what my video is about. Today, this conversation, this dialogue, is not taking care of yourself financially or protecting yourself financially to the best of your ability And then reaching that point where you're facing divorce or some other catastrophic life event and you don't have the resources. And I can tell you firsthand, as a person who, I've kind of been a saver my whole life. I'm pretty frugal. I don't spend money on things that are frivolous. My thing is, like, for example, if I'm going to buy tools, I'll buy the best tools possible, made in the US or made in Japan or made in Europe, and try to avoid stuff that's cheaper, if at all possible. It's the same thing with like a vehicle. If I'm getting a vehicle, I'll try to get the best example, whether it's new or used. Even if it means shelling out a little bit more money, something that hopefully lasts longer. Similarly with even stuff like clothes. I have never been one for high-end clothes or designer clothes. I tend to buy stuff that doesn't have brand names, but I try to buy a better version of it. Not the Old Navy stuff so much, maybe Gap. Not Old Navy and not Banana Republic, maybe Gap stuff. And I've tried to live my life like that, just kind of be responsible with my money. However, when it's come to things like investing and beyond the savings, being able to put a little money away, I've been very bad at that. And I'll be the first to admit it. Should have been better. I have had 401ks. I've put money in 401ks. The problem is I've rated those 401ks to support, my marital lifestyle. And I'll say marital because it wasn't anything I wanted to do. It was, and this gets back to the decision-making process that I talked about early on. When you get married as a man, you are turning over your decision-making in many instances to your wife. And I say that because everything can't be an argument. And I know that you've got these guys on these channels who talk about maintaining frame and talk about how, you still have to be the man in the relationship. And you may be able to do that, and I think you can do that. Having been in long-term relationships without the marriage, that you can do. You can kind of maintain, you still give up a certain part of your life or your lifestyle and your decision making to the female in the relationship. However, you don't to the extent of when you're married. When you're married, you almost inevitably turn a lot of that over to your wife. And the reason being, you just want to keep peace, because otherwise everything would be an argument. And make no mistake about it, guys. For those of you who haven't been married, for those of you who have been married, you'll attest to this. For the young guys out there who haven't been married, the woman you marry is never the woman you're divorcing or that's divorcing you. It's a Jekyll and Hyde situation. They're all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns when you marry them. But at the end, it's like a horror film. It's like Damien wrapped up with The Exorcist, wrapped up with, all those, Jason and Michael and all those slasher films. That's the woman that's divorcing you. Things get real ugly. So during the time of your marriage, oftentimes you make the compromises. You very rarely see a woman make a compromise. And when she does, believe me, you will hear about it for the rest of your life. As long as you're in a relationship with that woman, you will hear about the compromise she had to make or compromises she will never let you forget. As a man, you kind of get over something pretty quickly. You might harbor some resentment about it in a relationship. Let's talk about just exclusively in a relationship with a woman. You might harbor some resentment about it, but you mostly tamp it down. And honestly, 99% of the time as men, we just kind of forget about it and move on. You kind of roll with the punches and you move on, you get on with your life. Women never do that. They have a database in the back of their mind where they file every slight, every perceived insult, everything that you have said or done that in her mind is wrong or somehow has harmed her. And she will pull them out of that filing cabinet, out of that place, that registry, that hard drive in her mind at any moment that she deems to be advantageous to her and her agenda. And it doesn't matter who we're talking about, no matter how sweet you think this woman is, no matter how wonderful she is, no matter whether you've had one child, no children, 10 children with this woman, inevitably they all do that. Now, again, it's a matter of degrees. Some women do it to a lesser extent. They'll pull stuff out and they'll club you with it. And it might even be in a good-natured kind of way, but they will still do it. Most women, they're pretty mean and petty about it, frankly. And you don't usually have a response because there is no rational response to that. They'll pull out this perceived slight that happened maybe 5 or 6 or 10 years ago, and you're like, huh? Where is this coming from? And to be honest with you, they're going to pull it out. They're going to cudgel you with it, and then that may lead to other things. They'll bait you into an argument, and it'll escalate. Whatever it is will escalate into something far beyond what it should be. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And so the fact of the matter is that, getting back to my initial premise, she's controlling the relationship. She's got all these different types of tools and vehicles to exploit and use against you. Well, it's almost like I don't even want to use the word debate, but it's like argument jujitsu that she's going to pull out, and she's going to use this stuff against you. Or argument judo, and you're just going to be flopping around on the mat because there's no rational response to any of it. But it gets back to what I was saying. She's going to control the relationship. She's going to control the framework of the relationship, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Of course, you can't. If you let things go too far with the arguing, and this gets back to involving the state in your affairs. If you're dumb enough to get married, sorry guys, again, I don't give life advice, but if you're dumb enough to get married, in my case, I'm talking about for me, and involve the state in your affairs, there can be false allegations or things that get ginned up against you before the law. I mean, it happens where, these arguments, even if they don't escalate to anything physical, which oftentimes they don't, most of the time they don't, they're just arguments. Someone calls the law and the law is always going to take her side. Doesn't matter how wrong she is, doesn't matter, unless she puts her hands on you and there's some kind of physical evidence where they can say, it's a domestic violence issue and she's the perpetrator, they're always going to take her side. So the state is going to take her side in court. She's going to be the perceived, even, like in my case, my second ex committed adultery. I mean, she was living with her boyfriend when we were going through the court proceedings for divorce. She had been living with her boyfriend since she walked out of the house, and her mother bought her a home for them to cohabitate. So the state still considers, even if there's this perceived, or the judges try and make it out like they're impartial, she's still the aggrieved party. When we were sitting in court and going through some of the custody stuff, and she was just trumping up nonsensical things about how bad a person I was, even though I'd supported our family for, her and our family for, years, and always been a good provider, and always, given her everything that she wanted, which that's your number one mistake, is giving in to her. Unfortunately, that's what happens in relationships, again, to keep the peace. But, giving these women what they want is a mistake, because, again, they know they have the upper hand, and they're going to use it against you, and they're going to resent you for it. But the time will come where, you will be perceived as the bad person. You will have to make amends for nothing you actually did that's wrong. But because society is so oriented towards subsidizing the female economy, the female, we live in a gynocentric world now, where it's all about, female empowerment and female, honestly, dominance over the male sphere. This is why they came up with phrases like toxic masculinity. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. That's just nonsense. But there are plenty of toxic females, and you will meet them. So anyway, I don't want to keep this too long. I just want some words of warning out there for you young guys. Be careful. As I said, the woman that you meet, may fall in love with and marry will not be the same woman or demon that you divorce, or that that will sit at the other table in divorce court. Again, I would remind everyone, please like and subscribe the video if you haven't already. Leave comments, and I will see you all down the road. Be safe.